Thank you, Joanne, and thank you to my other presenters. Actually, I feel that my paper starts to weave in from the other two, so it's quite exciting. I want to start off in her 1972 essay, The Double Standard of Aging. Susan Sontag states, "No one escapes a sickening shock upon turning 40. For me, this sickening shock will come in a mere 6 weeks. As Sontag's paper turns 40 this year, so do I. And although I'm not really all that concerned about being open and honest about my age, I have to admit that in this past year, in the state of being 39, it has made me acutely aware of how age, or should I say the anxiety of aging, is represented in dominant mainstream media, particularly that which is narrowly geared to the middle and upper class white woman. Advertising gurus have placed the process of aging not only in contempt, but in a full-fledged state of war. However, there are of course exceptions. Celebrities such as Susan Sarandon, Helen Mirren, Angela Lansbury, and Betty White all demonstrate in the public eye that they're not only at ease with aging, but are lauded for their courage, fortitude, and bravery, and are obviously commended for how good they look. But why are they considered the exception and not the norm, considering that the crone is the most powerful female archetype? In terms of contemporary mass media, later life is predominantly represented of images of older people, generally with a text that confirms what activities are not only possible, but should be part of a later in life lifestyle. Dating, sex, traveling, playing with grandchildren, happiness, utility, and personal fulfillment. Thanks to Canadian media visionary Moses Seimer, founder of City TV and Much Music, and most recently Zoomer Media Limited, his concept of the Zoomer generation, people over the age of 45 can have it all, and life can be even better now than when they were their younger boomer selves. That age is just merely a state of mind. But before I get into the meat of my discussion, it needs to be acknowledged that for all the Viagra and age-defying serums out there, getting older, whether lived or perceived, more often than not is a difficult and can be even a wretched time. I don't need to provide you with hundreds of pages of text and copious footnotes to prove to you that the passage of time, the human body loses its agility and functionality, and that this physical decline is generally coupled with the deterioration of one's mental faculties. I completely understand that the war against aging is a means to ward off the ageist and stereotypical view that older people are not able to contribute to the fast-paced society, or that given their perceived fragile physical and mental states are potentially easy victims. Nobody would willingly want to be obsolete, unproductive, and a target for harm. But does this form of ageism have to be so limiting? Does it really have to be an active battle to the very end? Because we all know who wins. For this paper, I'm interested in constructing a portrait of aging that stems from my position as a white woman on the cusp of turning 40. The three artists I have selected, Meera Margaret Singh, Dominique, and Suzy Lake, through their photo-based practices, present another perspective, a perspective that offers another option to the representation of aging, specifically one that is centered on the white woman. This option is not one that is in crisis or in denial mode. Instead, it is one that unabashedly displays the proof of lives lived on their faces and bodies and are unapologetically full of power, conjuring associations of beauty, sexual desire, strength, resilience, and fortitude. I'm interested in teasing out this gray area where the ideas of getting older are blurring and conventions are changing. It is important to note that in the works of all these three women artists that were created not with the intent to represent old age or the elderly women. Singh, Reid, and Lake did not set out specifically to create images that represent later life. For each of these artists, it is the personal identity of their subjects, be it defined through their professions, their relationships, or even their own self, that is of primary concern. In other works, their work is not about age, but who their subjects are. Meera Margaret Singh has been photographing her mother, aunt, and older female friends for more than 4 years. In distinctive suites, she positions the aging female body as a contemporary odalisque, ripe with evocative energy, or as vanitas, warning of the impending end. In a similar vein to Singh, Dominique Ray's Sisters of the Cross project centers on this order of nuns. Over the last 7 years, on different occasions, Ray has immersed himself in this private world of women, and due to the declining power of the Catholic religion, the mean age of this group is well over 80. Whereas in contrast to Reid and Singh, the full body scans performed by Suzy Lake places the artist's own aging body between the virtual and the literal, combining a presence that is both haunting and sentient. In considering the subject of these three artists' works, I'm also interested in how one relates to photographs that portray the older woman, through this frame that does not deny aging, but instead shifts its connotations to something that is recognizable not only to the subjects themselves, but to all others, as we are all in the state of becoming older. I'd like to begin my discussion with the work of Meera Margaret Singh. Although her mother had prefigured in her earlier work, in 2007, while she was doing her MFA right here at Concordia, Singh began this series, Nightingale, which features her mother's predominantly unclothed body as the main protagonist. Referencing that the nightingale bird is both a literary and artistic symbol of love and loss, this series of still photographs highlights various areas that are stereotypically associated with sensual or erotic overtones, specifically the back, breasts, and legs. Here is the image that takes the same title of the entire series, Nightingale. Taken in her mother's home against the rose-colored carpet in almost matching panties, there's something very familiar but at the same time quite unsettling about this image. Singh's mother, Christine, is posed with her back to the viewer and her face turns towards us in profile. The female back has long been a boudoir subject for male artists ranging from Angers to Picasso, and many contemporary fashion photographers have learned to exploit its sexual titillation qualities. This may be because the exposed female back suggests and gives the illusion of the bare-breasted front. But what is happening in this photograph? Instead of being a smooth and taut hourglass shape, we are presented with the folds of sagging flesh, varicose veins, and stretch marks. The expected mane of long, full, and shiny hair is actually fine and grainy. Even her calloused feet are turned out for our attention. The companion to Nightingale is Wing, where her mother takes another classic nude pose, staring out over her left shoulder. Against the richness of the carpeting and the ornate copper radiator and lace curtains, Christine does not seem out of place. Not surprisingly, there is a shared sensibility between her own nude body and her home decor. These images lead one to speculate that what we're looking at is a private photo shoot between lovers. Singh deftly places Christine in a precarious position between the object of desire and the object of loathing. This association shifts dramatically when we learn that the person taking the photo is the subject's daughter. The complexity of the mother-daughter relationship comes under scrutiny. What we become presented with is a transgression of intimacy, perhaps a form of intimacy between mother and daughter that can be construed as taboo or even obscene. But moving past this conservative, prudish opinion, there's something quite poignant about a younger woman, a daughter no less, acknowledging and paying attention to her mother's own body, a body which she is an extension of. Put simply, is Singh investigating her own mortality through her mother's aging? Does Singh see her mother as a harbinger for what is her future reality? This mode of inquiry is further enforced when considering the work Lament. Here, Christine's once shapely legs are a roadmap of blue, bulging, and rippling veins that lead to what appears to be a very painful set of feet plagued with circulation problems. As with Nightingale, Lament highlights an aspect of the female body that has long been considered an object of heterosexual male desire, the legs. Cropping the shot to feature from just above the knee to the toes with the heels resting on the same rose carpet, there are several awkward elements to this image. For one, how is Christine positioned? Not quite sitting up, nor lying on the ground, her legs are splayed out for inspection. There's also a sense of imposed decency, with the knees and toes locked together, and just a hint of the slip evidenced on the right side of the image. When installed, this work is intended to be hung low to the ground, positioning the viewer in the same manner as when Singh was taking the image. In addition, this display tactic also references the Indian custom of demonstrating respect for your elders by bowing down near this feet. Thus, as the viewer has to bend down to look at Christine's legs closely, they are paying her a form of respect. As the title of the work suggests, is there a lament or grieving over what is lost? Perhaps, but I would argue that an alternative position to the older female body is being established, one that embraces the loss and presents a new reality and respect for what is considered beautiful. As a continuation of the Nightingale series, Singh embarked on the Harbinger series and expanded her view to include her aunt and several older female friends as her subjects. This is a rather large body of work consisting of over 46 pieces, but just to give you a taste, I've selected 3 pieces for this presentation: Sonia Leslie Road, Pat and Annette, and Joan Fallen Tree. As with her earlier work, Singh is, and I quote, is interested in how her faces and how their faces will speak to their history, end quote. Again, she is constructing and creating the scenes in the theater of which will be played out before the camera. But here she moves away from the interior domestic space and is now focused on the aging body in relation to the exterior landscape, both from a physical and psychological platform through an expanded cast of characters. This relationship is quite literal in Joan Fallen Tree, but becomes more ambiguous with Sonia Leslie Road and Pat and Annette, who stare out into an off-camera space, or in the case of Pat, is subtly encouraged to hold back, as indicated by Annette's grip on her wrist, from sharing her secrets with us. Harbinger means one that comes before, a foreshadowing, or even a warning of what is what to come. This association fits quite appropriately with this alternative option to the representation of aging I'm interested in teasing out, that those that go before possess a power, a knowledge, and can signal to what lies ahead. Singh is highly adept at creating tableaus that allow viewers to access others' spheres. In this case of these 2 series, Nightingale and Harbinger, this sphere is one that is marked by time and its consequence aging, yet is presented through a lens that curiously fashions a more realistic portrayal of becoming older. As much as Singh stages and poses her muses, Dominique Reid takes a completely opposite approach to documenting her subjects. Instead, she immerses herself into their world. She becomes an active witness, not one that not only observes, but interacts and engages with her collaborators over an extended period of time. For the purpose of this talk, I'd like to center my discussion on her photographs from a body of work titled Sisters of the Cross. This project began for Reid in 2005 and is still ongoing as she's working through the presentation and installation of this material. The initial impetus for Reid to look at this specific group of women was in part because her aunt was a nun of this order. The convent, located in St. Boniface, Winnipeg, has sister houses in South America, Africa, Thailand, Italy, Spain, and the mother house is located in France. Starting in 2005, Reid spent many months with the nuns in the St. Boniface convent, interviewing, videotaping, and painting them, as well as researching their archives. This process of working was not new for Reid, as she had done a similar investigation with a diametrically opposed but equally marginalized group of women to the nuns, a community of exotic dancers for the project Selling Venus dating from 2003. What is important to note is that Reid puts in the time with this group of older women, caring for each other and facing the reality that their way of life was coming to an end, both due to the physical limitations of their body and also because there are no longer younger nuns entering the order. Infirmary and Living Room are just 2 works from this first chapter of the Sisters of the Cross. Both of these images offer an intimate view into the interior domestic space of these women, a private environment that is usually off limits to a public that the nuns are in service to. In Infirmary, it is not completely evident, but we suspect that what we're viewing, given the context of the series, is the aging female body covered with what appears to be hand-knitted booties, sweater, and green blanket. There is an attempt at comforting by co-opting a chair to become an extension of the lazy boy. Here, this presentation of dependence doesn't necessarily have to connote weakness. Instead, it signals sharing, caring, and community. Living Room is one of my favorite images because of its touch of humor, which is evident in the odd collection of lazy boys that have matching seat covers and are lined along the room in an L formation. Traces of the individual personalities of the nuns is evident in the styles and fabrics of the chair, the throw pillows, and blankets. And here we find a nun in her post-Vatican II habit, giving a very close read to the funny papers. In 2009, Reid continued her exploration and traveled to Brazil and Argentina, where over the period of 2 months she lived in 6 convents of the same order. Although there were a few younger nuns entering into the order in these locations, predominantly the women were older and were actively engaged in the social welfare of their communities. In an email Reid sent to me on March 17, 2009, she writes, and I start to quote, "I've been in Brazil for over 5 weeks, and what can I say? It has been a whirlwind of extreme experiences, from the madness and chaos of Carnival in Rio to the peaceful yet very busy lives of the Sisters of the Cross. Since my arrival among them 3 weeks ago, I've been working around the clock, documenting their day-to-day lives. Spending day after day with them, I'm experiencing firsthand the life of a nun. It is complex, as all our lives are, and anything but neat. Their work brings them in close contact with the poor, the depraved, the sick. They work tirelessly to help improve people's lives, such as a non-dominational organization that offers health care to pregnant women and families with children. This comprehensive program has saved the lives of many children, and I'm not referring to anti-abortion propaganda. There's no retirement age for the sisters. They continue to work until their mind or body gives up. Reid's work is certainly more documentary in its feel and conception, and this is evident in this image here, Sister Carmen, as it restates an alternate option to the representation of aging. In this work, we are presented with an older woman talking on the phone in an administration office. The busyness of office life is scattered out on the desks in front of her. With the exception of the crucifix on the wall, we would be hard-pressed to label this woman a nun. She presents herself as productive and engaging in this fast-paced modern world. Sister Carmen was in fact the former Mother Superior of Argentina and had recently stepped down in order to look after the elderly nuns at the La Plata convent. It should be noted that nuns have a very different notion of beauty and that they are not concerned with what mass media dictates, and on the flip side of that, mainstream society does not expect nuns to be concerned. As a consequence, the idea of beauty in this space becomes more open. For this paper, I'm also interested in Suzy Lake's recent body scan pieces, and I want to focus my discussion on 3 works presented here: Reduced Performing Breathing number 5, Reduced Performing Breathing and Blinking, and Reduced Performing Crying number 1. Through professional connections, Lake was provided with an opportunity to work with a very large, high-end flatbed scanner. Given her slender frame, she was able to lie down on the bed of the scanner and allow the sensor to pass over her, moving inch by inch in a sequence that starts at the bottom of her feet and ends just above her head. The results are exact one-to-one self-portraits in various states of reduced performing. While looking at these images, there are elements that are not quite right, and it gives the viewer time to work through the image. The most noticeable imperfection is the digital drag, or in more technical speak, the RGB breakup that is evident in reduced performing breathing number 5, where the breakup can be seen across Lake's chest. This is caused by the way the scanner sensor is recording the movement and the performance of breathing, blinking, or crying. For Lake, she is using the technology of the scanner, both its advantages and its flaws, to create signifiers that speak to what the work is about. She, and I quote, uses the nuances of the technology to buy me time. Given the shallow depth of field and the flat lighting, these self-portraits have an almost wax figurine quality to them. Lake deliberately posed herself with her feet consciously positioned so that they look like they are standing. And when exhibited side by side, the images would link together like a paper doll cutout. However, this corpse-like pose starts to move these images into the terrain of the uncanny, signaling connotations of which that of the undead, or yet still at the same time capable of expressing emotions, such as sadness as witnessed by reduced performing crying number 1. Lake also chose to perform in neutral clothing that would not date the works, but there is a type of dating going on. More than just the time of day is captured on her watch. As a performance artist who has been documenting her own body through her career, these pieces highlight that the face changes as one gets older. Because she is laying down, her facial expression is different than if she were actually standing. For Lake, aging represents its own power, one that is invisible and deniable, but is still there. As brought together in this paper, Singh, Reid, and Lake portray neither the negative nor positive sides of aging. With these photographic representations of older women, I would like to reorient the viewer into considering aging as a more active state of becoming or being. In doing so, we move away from attitudes that assume older age as a pejorative category. It is a range, just like other age ranges. Another option for looking at the separation between generations, instead of us versus them, is about acknowledging and respecting differences. Lake's work is a representation of the younger older woman. In contrast, Reid's project reconsiders the position of the older woman as other, whereas Singh sits in between by underlying age as a continuum. As we view these images of older women, I urge you to see yourself in them, and thereby to gain insight, and to consider time a gift, not a bitch. Thanks.